Alright guys, Hutchkarmic again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Minnesota Rock have become the 7th team of this Rostermania period so far to confirm their new team for the new season, and a very interesting team at that. A slight departure, it must be said, in terms of roster building, the way they've done it over the last couple of years, tragically so it's got to be said, compared to what they're trying to do this time around. But arguably, this roster echoes many things with the Seattle Surge roster from last season, but in some ways might be significantly worse. Very much enjoyed your perspective in the comments below. How good do you think this team will be? What's the ceiling? What's the floor? Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. Now let's just dive straight into it, because Rocker have been teasing this for a little bit of time now, and today we finally got the announcement. Now, I mean, look, these announcements they do, I respect it, right? Because this roster got rumoured a while ago, and when things are rumoured and there's no further rumours, we're pretty sure it's true, but it's never absolutely sure, and you never know that things could have changed around behind the scenes. I'm still semi-surprised that Rocker or Surge, who we think are getting a Boozer, didn't get both Lins and a Boozer. Kind of strange they're split up here, I will say. But anyway, they do the official confirmation. This is the video, and like, I'm not going to put you guys through the pain of having to actually watch this. Well, you will have to watch it in the background, but you won't have to listen to it, which is definitely a positive. Like, when you get the pros that aren't in the same building to do some acting, and they clearly don't really want to do it, it doesn't always end so well. I mean, look, it's kind of funny. If you look at it as if you're watching it as like a bad film that's going to be funny because it's so bad, then this is quite entertaining. If you watch it as like a serious video, then, you know, you'll have a difficult time getting through the whole thing, I would imagine. But nonetheless, you know, here we go. So Accuracy calls up Vivid and they say, yo, do you want to come on board? And they get in touch with Lins, who we just saw. And then, of course, Vivid gets in touch with Awakening, who, you know, they've teamed together, haven't they, for the last, like, 3 years in a row. It's kind of weird how it's all worked out. But they're back together again on this new look Minnesota Rocker team. A rather different team to what they've built over the last couple of years. Does it mean it's going to be any better? I am far from convinced, to be honest. And look, of all the other teams that we've seen built so far, most of them have been pretty good. And I will say this team at least has the pieces in the right positions. Compared to the rumoured Seattle team with Abuza, Arcetes, and Illy with Hook as well, it's like on that team we've got too many ARs, which is what Rocker used to do. This year, at least, they have 2 actual SMG players. So props to Minnesota Rocker for building, you know, not actually just hiring all ARs, and actually building a team where the roles do make some sense. Is the team good, though? You know, that remains to be seen as far as I'm concerned. And, I mean, the floor on this team is, as far as I'm concerned, in the mud. Where the ceiling is, that's the big debate. So this is now confirmed by the Call of Duty League, and there's been some reaction to it. So Accuracy, of course, he's been around for so many years at this point. We've seen what he's done with the Seattle Surge over the last couple of years. Lins, French superstar SMG player, and superstar SMG players, well, potential superstar, of course, but, you know, let's say big name prospect from the French region in the SMG role, is going to cause quite a bit of a stir over the last couple of years, especially with what Hydra did this most recent season. So Lins is not exactly getting hyped up as like the next Hydra, but frankly, that's what Rocker need him to be, because if he's not, I think this team's going to be in a tough spot. Then Awakening and Vivid, they've played together before. Awakening, his biggest issue has really been actually playing for the dub. I think we've seen quite a lot that this guy, if it was TDM only, wow, Awakening would be unbelievable. And maybe Accuracy is the man to finally unlock that. I know there was some talk this past season as, you know, what if you put Clayster in there with Awakening? Could he get the most out of him? I think Accuracy possibly can, and like, if you maximize Awakening, you've got a really promising player there on your hands, but it's been several years now into Awakening's career. He's not had much success outside of that first season with Florida back in MW19, where they won quite a lot of stuff online that season when Awakening came into the roster. Since then, hasn't really achieved that much, gets a lot of kills, doesn't really translate. Is Accuracy the man to unlock that from him? He's definitely one of the possible candidates. So that's why, you know, I don't hate what they've decided to do here with this roster. I'm just not sure they've chosen the best pieces in those respective roles. Then Lins comes along as well. This is officially confirmed. So yeah, the Awobabob's going to buy out for Lins, I guess, as they will for Abuza going onto the Seattle Surge. As I say, a little bit surprised they didn't come along together. I think as much as I think Awakening can be a really good player, it's kind of like some Optic fans are saying with Dashy, like, oh, well, you know, one more year, and if this team doesn't win, it's time to go. And, you know, not all Optic fans are saying that, of course, but it's been a thought, right, that, you know, maybe this is Dashy's time time to really prove that he's got what it takes to win, and if he doesn't, then questions will be raised. Kind of maybe the same for me with Awakening. It's like, give him this chance with another IGL, and if this doesn't go well, then Awakening's going to have a hard time getting at any teams better than this going forwards, I would say. And maybe there was an argument to say, bring a Boozer along, an AR counterpart to Linz anyway, and have him run the flex on this team, and at least then they get on, you know, they speak French together. I don't know how good Linz's English is. He was speaking French in their announcement video. I imagine he speaks reasonably good English, but even for Hydra, who spoke, you know, he could speak some English when he came over, but it took him a good year, really, to actually fully get into the groove of how they speak English in communication. Understanding the language is a bit different to actually being able to use it in a competitive game when you're playing in a high-pressure situation with some of the best in the world. Even Clay mentioned this recently when on the exclusive podcast, and he said that there was some moment he teamed with Hydra, and he called out like, someone's on your left, and Hydra misheard him and thought that he said something else, and you know, he just couldn't quite understand. He knew what the words meant, but putting it together in that moment to understand the detail was poor. And you know, maybe bringing along someone else with Linz who also speaks French could be a good idea, but you know, Rocket will try and make it work as is. And then Awakening bringing it back for the ride as well, with Vivid rounding out the roster. So it's got to be said, Rocket have built some highly questionable teams over the last several years, especially in the last couple of 2 seasons when it's been 4v4. Brian Saint has, you know, maybe lost his job, you could argue, based on some of the decisions that have been made over the last couple of seasons. This was an absolute travesty, what they built going into the Cold War season with, as it has turned out to this day, just 4 ARs. Accuracy was there then, right? Let's not forget, during Cold War, and had a rather memorable moment against Optic with the 3 guys that line up and all this against Optic back in the day. But at the time, you know, Major Maniac, they had Priest, they had Attach. Eventually, of course, Standy comes in, and they actually start to make some steps forwards, and Standy did a really good job in the latter half of that season. Last year, they built a somewhat better team, I would say, for MW2. On paper, this wasn't too bad. I actually think it was pretty good at the start of last season, and they started off quite well. They had a top 3 finish in the Boston Major. They looked like they could even go further in that tournament. Eventually, things start to collapse. Afro gets dropped. They make a couple of changes, and at the end of the year, they're all gone from the roster entirely. You know, Cold War Cammy didn't really re-emerge, but it was a slightly better go that Rocker made last year. But like, they spent a lot of money on this roster to get some of the players off Toronto, especially in Bance and Cammy's case, and yet they didn't live up to those expectations. And outside of that kind of not exactly a fluke Stage 5 major win, because they were actually legitimately good at the time, they haven't done much over the last couple of years. Vanguard was a disaster, Modern Warfare 2 was better, a couple of 3rd places, but still, they just about made champs, and then they collapsed out top 8. They're taking a different tack here with this team, and building around more, you know, young upcoming talent. Okay, they had Afro last year, but the rosters they've usually built have been established players. They haven't really taken too many chance on brand new rookies that, you know, they hope that their talisman and accuracy can help build up and build around. And that will be where the pressure is as far as I'm concerned. Can Accuracy be the guy they need him to be? Because these are Accuracy's numbers last season. You know, it's not especially impressive, but this is what you're going to get from Accuracy. And arguably, you know, is he on the decline, right? This is a question. Has he been getting worse over the last 2, 3, 4 seasons? Maybe yes. Has he been getting better in terms of, you know, helping players become the best version themselves? I would also say yes. And Accuracy, whenever he is done competing, will be a phenomenal coach, hands down, as far as I'm concerned. And maybe Rocket could be a great organization to do exactly that on in the future. But for now, he's going to play again, still believes he can, still wants to. But, you know, is this season from Accuracy going to be worse than last season from Accuracy? It might be, we don't know. There is more movement in this game, and Accuracy is known for kind of being a bit of a metal boots AR, doesn't really like to do all that much slide cancelling, and you know, more movement will be a feature of this game compared to what it has been last year. So, you know, look, Accuracy is one of some options in this IGL AR role. The likes of, you know, maybe I'd prefer to get Clayster, in my opinion, if I was deciding this team. But then again, maybe there's more pros and cons to Clayster, right? And you could keep Attach around, but obviously they don't want to do that. They'd prefer to bring back Accuracy. So I don't hate this at all. I think they've just got to realize the kind of position they're playing here in Minnesota, where if they do manage to make a couple of championship Sundays, even a grand final, that's a really good result for them, right? And that's where they need to be looking. So Awakening, right, Big Wake, he had, you know, another statistically very good season, especially in the respawns. I mean, look at the kills, look at the damage, but, you know, didn't translate to that many victories. So if there is one man, and there's only a few guys in Accuracy's position that can try and get the best out of Awakening, I do feel like Accuracy is one of them. So So I like what they're doing with an AR duo, and, you know, I can see it potentially working out quite well. The issue that I have is I just compare this roster to the Seattle roster of last season and the year before, and I think in some ways it's kind of just worse, and yet it's not like that team had that much success. So, intrigued to your perspective on that now. Would I take Mac on the Surge team? Would I take Vivid? I'd probably take Vivid, but you've got to know what you're getting with Vivid, right? He is going to be a 0.9, 0.95 SMG. Very hyper-aggressive, arguably at times too fast and too aggressive, and he's not going to do any hill time, right? So Awakening or Accuracy has got to do a lot of the hill time work on this team because the SMGs aren't going to do it, and Accuracy doesn't mind sitting in the hill, so, and maybe they can work out a way with Awakening to make that happen as well. But, you know, Vivid's going to be out there, right? He's going to be flying around, and he's going to be incredibly fast. Arguably, at times, he's been too fast for his teammates, but when he's on point, he can be a really impactful player. So, definitely Vivid was a good option for consideration. And then Linz. He is the player that actually needs to be a superstar, though. Like, if this team is going to be more than just, oh, we might make champs, we might not. If it's actually going to be a contender, Linz needs to drop these numbers in the Pro League, right? I mean, last year he had a 1.2 in the Challenger side. He had great numbers. And, you know, as a French rookie SMG, he's going to be garnering a lot of attention. Now, there are some other concerns, the language stuff, fitting in with the team. And it's not like Hydra hit the grounds absolutely sprinting, right? It took him a year or two to really start to see the MVP Hydra we saw the most recent season. So I'm not expecting anything crazy from Linz in the first few months. But in the same way that Clayster was, you know, crucial in helping Hydra's development in some sense, maybe Accuracy can be the same here for Linz. So a bit of patience required for this team if they want to succeed, but you know, they kind of need Linz to be a Hydra as far as I'm concerned if they actually want this team to try and really succeed. And this is the comparison that I would make here to the Seattle Surge. In many ways, it's quite a similarly constructed roster, and I think that ROKKR have made a good decision to try and construct a roster in this way. Surge had unprecedented success, to be honest, during the Vanguard year where they actually won an event, which people definitely didn't expect them to do. And, you know, they won an event at Major 3 that season. They were not that good this year. They ran it back. They could have traded Pred or sold Pred. Didn't happen. And in the end, they, you know, fizzled out as a team. But still, I mean, you know, they did a good job there, what Surge were doing, compared to their absolutely disastrous roster building of the couple of years before. ROKKR might be saying, you know what, the solution to our problems is to get Accuracy in and build around him with a couple of, you know, young rookie guys. But, you know, would I take Vivid over Mac? Probably yes, but it's a little bit touch and go. Would I take Awakening over Sib? Not as far as I'm concerned. I think Sib's a more impactful player. But, you know, can Awakening be as good? Possibly yes, with the right guidance. Would I take Pred over Linz? Well, you know, obviously, if Linz is as good as Pred, fair play, and he kind of needs to be, but it's unlikely, isn't it, that Linz comes out and is as good as Hydra, is as good as Pred. But in terms of comparing the rosters, you got Accuracy, and maybe the Accuracy of today and this year is not going to be quite as good as he was 2 years ago. And it's not like any of Accuracy's teams recently have been any good at search and destroy either, so I'm a little bit concerned about the search and destroy component of this new team, because it's not like, you know, Awakening is a search and destroy monster. Linz, I'm sure, is good in challenges, but how does that translate? And Vivid, okay, gets a few first bloods. So the search and destroy I am concerned about with this new Minnesota team, because it was all Pred doing all the first bloods and all of the work on Surge's search and destroy last year, and they still weren't that good at it. So they were actually pretty terrible at it for the first part of the year, despite Pred putting the team on his back. So definitely some concerns, and what I'm saying is that that Seattle team, despite on paper being, I would say, better than the ROKKR team we're currently looking at, which there are some parallels to draw, they still didn't do that much, did they? I mean, they won an event in Vanguard, they came second at the kickoff, fourth at this year's champs, but outside of that, didn't really do that much. So you've definitely got to realise and rein in the intention that this new look Minnesota ROKKR squad is not going to come out and be setting the world on fire. Their floor is, you know, no doubt not making champs. Their ceiling might be top, you know, I think they can probably make a championship Sunday this year. It's going to take some time, it's going to take some patience, and fundamentally, I don't disagree with the ideas behind this roster. I just look at the individual players and I'm just not sure that it's going to last the test of time. So very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.